Wednesday night delight. He's got the ball. He's got the bourbon. It is Bradley Stickler, the bourbon dude. What's up, Brad?
Oh, living the dream as always. Got to beat everybody to it before they steal my line. Ready to talk Thursday night. Ready to talk some start sits. I'm ready to continue sipping on my Blantons. I'm just raring to go today, man.
Mind on my money, money on my mind. It is that time. We're doing the start sits. We're talking Thrive Fantasy. You better prop up FF Affair. All sorts of yum-yums and good. But we're not alone. We reached all the way back to first base, and we said we need a big hitter. We need a guy to hit this ball out of the park. We go triple play fantasy. We go Dave Mendy, a.k.a. David Mendelson, if you're at school, coach. But we're here to party. We're here to have a good time. It's Wednesday night. Dude, this guy's on Fantasy Pros. He's all over, in the zone, and on point. Dave, bring it to us. Bring it to us now, my man.
Wow, they got the best hype man in the business. Get to be part of the Fantasy Affair, and this is awesome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Dude, glad to have you, dude. I went on tour with the Black Eyed Peas for a couple of years as their hype guy, and all I can do is run it. But it's been fun. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, dude. Pumped to have you, man. Triple play fantasy. You don't just cover football. You do all the sports. You have eating contests, things I'm just kind of jealous of. But, dude, you have done anything and everything in this fantasy football industry. Real quick, before we go start sits, tell everybody a little bit about your brand, Triple Play.
Yeah, man. So you kind of covered part of it. We do baseball, basketball, and football. We try to cover all three of those big sports, kind of every facet, fantasy. We try to bring on analysts in each field or former players, current players, have kind of interview one-on-one sit-downs with them. And then also kind of try to bring an entertainment factor out of it, have games within the talking of fantasy or whatever it is. Try to just be an overall entertainment and fantasy analysis type of show. And we have a great time with it. We have a great group of guys over at our team, and we love being able to just talk fantasy with what you guys know, the best community out there on tour, the fantasy community. It's great, and it's something that we've really enjoyed over the last year and a half.
Dude, Austin Eckler, Adam Rank, anybody that step foot on your door, they take their shoes off, show that respect, but they have fun, dude. That's what makes this is why we do it. We have our jobs. This is a job we want, but if we can't have it just yet, we're going to have a blast doing it. Guys, y'all ready to talk some start sits?
Oh, hell yeah. Let's go.
Oh, hell yeah. Before we do, guys, everybody's playing DFS. Everybody's playing prop bets, anything and everything. Thrive Fantasy, prop up, promo code FF Affair. They have all sorts of great advertisements running right now. First-time entries. I think they match your money. Little things like that. Free tickets to the Thursday night $15,000 tournament. Things like that, guys. Take advantage of these good deals. Prop up at Thrive Fantasy. Promo code, all caps, FF Affair. Do it and do it now. Let's talk quarterbacks, though. QB starts, QB sits. Let's start with the starts, guys. Brad, this one, I feel like we're going back to the well. We're deep in, not really digging deep here. Now it's just consistency. It's class. And that's what you're offering here with the car. So check it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so here's the deal. This is when people start to look at matchups, and there might be this perception that the Chargers have a pretty solid defense, right? They've got some key pieces. They've got some guys that you hear their names, so they drag a little bit of name value also. But here's the simple fact of the matter. The last 2 weeks, the LA Chargers have allowed over 400 passing yards, and you mentioned it. The man, my hype man, my big call for the year, Derek fucking Carr, is leading the league in passing yards. And he's going into this soft ass, I love you, Quinn, but soft ass, Quinn_Cusky on Twitter, just in case, right? Yeah. Soft defense that the LA Chargers have, and I love everything about it. Not to mention his favorite number one target, Darren Waller. The Chargers are middle of the pack at stopping the tight end as well. So I'm loving Derek Carr this week. I expect another big passing yardage week out of him. And you just got to ride the wave right now. Now, I don't think there's a possible way. A lot of guys drafted him either late. He might even be your QB2, right? You may have guys like Matt Stafford and Derek Carr when you're those late quarterback type drafters. So to me, he's a smash play right now until further notice.
Not only that, dude, but you go into Baltimore, or you play Baltimore, you go into Pittsburgh, you play Miami, and you knock the fucking door down. We're talking 6 touchdowns, over 300 yards easy, over 350 yards easy, almost a 400-yard game average, I believe. Derek Carr's been a stud, man. This is a guy, everybody sees him as a QB2. Nah, QB1, dog. Mendy, any thoughts on Carr here, man? Is he always disrespected? Do you see this guy continuing on this QB1 fad?
I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was QB 13 last year. So he was right up there towards QB1 territory. And he's number 2 through a quarter of the season, just about in passing attempts, 136 passing attempts just behind Tom Brady. And he leads the league in passing yards, 8.8 yards per attempt, over 400 yards per game.
Ooh.
He's putting up the numbers right now, and it helps obviously that the Raiders don't really have much of a run game with Josh Jacobs not playing. Kenyon Drake is staying in the Kenyon Drake role, and you have Peyton Barber leading the backfield. So it's the Derek Carr show, and as long as it's staying the Derek Carr show, I think you got him. There's not too many options you're going to play over him outside, the studs of the studs, but he's definitely a really serviceable starter. And if you have him as your second quarterback in a 2-quarterback league, you're probably, I'm sure, at least 2-1, if not 1-3, or I'm sorry, 3-0. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, dude, till he does something different. You got to keep rocking and rolling this guy. Mm-hmm. Let's move on. Let's talk Washington here, because Dave, you went with a guy that's kind of under the radar still. We saw him, play the Giants. We've seen some action here. Let's talk to Heinke, aka Taylor Heinke, your Washington football team starting quarterback. Let us know what's up here, man.
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking like starts. Of course, you're starting like Tom Brady, you're starting Matthew Stafford, you're starting Aaron Rodgers. Like these guys you have them, you're starting them. So we get into obviously bringing up Derek Carr was a great one to start off with. So I think someone that's obviously not quite as much of of course not a no doubter with like Carr, but Taylor Heinke, I think. Even though you see his name, it's not flashy. He's averaged more than 20 fantasy points per game this year. And he's going against the Falcons, who've had the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks per game this year, 24.9 points per game, and the third most rushing yards to quarterbacks as well. And Heinke will run occasionally if they give him a lane, and he'll do the thing. And he's actually looked pretty good. I mean, going back to last year when he was playing, they gave the Bucs all they could handle in that playoff game, and he's looked pretty decent this year. And I think against the Falcons, I would not be shocked to see him kind of be a fringe QB1, maybe that QB like 14, 15 range, which, again, if you're in a pinch and you need a spot starter, you could do a lot worse, I think, this week than Taylor Heinke.
How do you see this playing out with Heinke for the rest of the year? Do you think this guy's going to ride it? He's going to be the starter at least for this season?
That's an interesting question, because what Fitzpatrick's supposed to come back about midway through the season. And at that point, I think it's going to be one of those things where, like, I could see them. If you're asking me today, I think he slides into the backup role. And I think they're basically going to just have him help grow Taylor Heinke so they can see what they have. This is the chance where Washington, who right now is at 1-2, could easily be 0-3. They're most likely, I would expect them to have a top 10 pick in next year's draft. And they're a quarterback away. I mean, this defense has looked awful, but you expect they're going to turn that around at some point. They need a quarterback in there. So they need to figure out if that's going to be Heinke or if they're going to need to go draft somebody. So I think when Fitzpatrick comes back, he'll slide into the backup role. Heinke is going to start as long as he's healthy, and we'll see how it plays out. But I think you could trust, as long as he's playing at the level he's playing at right now, this is Heineke's job.
Brad, dude, QB 15 on the year, 3 games in. Let us know, what are your thoughts on this guy moving forward?
I don't disagree even a little bit. I do think there's a world where this guy stays the starter, though, even when Ryan Fitzpatrick comes back. If he can manage to string a couple wins together where they could still, get into the postseason playing playoff football. I think there's a world they may not make that change. He gives you the rushing floor you talked about, right? He's got some legs. He's proven that he can throw the ball when he needs to throw the ball. I think the problem right now for that team is not on offense. It's their defense. Their defense is just not getting it done. And I think that's another reason that really makes him a good start this week against an otherwise, you would think, if you couple the Washington team from last year with Atlanta team of this year, you think they're going to blow the Atlanta Falcons out. But that defense is pretty pitiful right now. They're getting no pressure. Their cornerbacks aren't playing well. So this could be a little bit of a closer game than what you would have originally thought looking into the schedule earlier on. And with that, that's going to play into Heineke's game and giving him the opportunity to have a better game. You talked about QB 15. Dave, I think you said right around 13, 14, 15 you could see this week. And I think that's a smash start for sure. I 100% agree.
Dude, and he's not making a bunch of mistakes, a bunch of turnovers. He looks composed, which is what you want from a backup quarterback. Granted, being 28, he's been around the league, so I'm impressed with him so far. I'm not saying I wouldn't think the upside would be with Fitzpatrick, but for this week against Atlanta, this is a smash spot. I love it. I went back to the cellar. Eagles fans just had their hearts broken on Monday night. Boo-hoo. Grab a tissue. Love hurts. It hurts, but in fantasy, it's pretty damn good. QB5 on the year, even with 2 picks, over 20 fantasy points in every single game. He got to play Kansas City. I had no idea this was the 32nd ranked pass defense so far this season. So to me, this is a smash spot. Even if they rely on the run, he's still going to get his. You're telling me this is a locked and loaded. I don't care what I saw Monday night as far as fantasy goes, he produces. So I'm going Hurts here against Kansas City. Any hesitation, guys? You saw him just shit the bed on Monday night. Is this maybe a fade? Even with the matchup, you know they're going to have to pass against Kansas City. Dave, what do you think about Hurts this week?
No, I mean, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I tell you, it's a smash. I mean, the Chiefs defense has struggled, like you said. They're worst at the position right now. The second most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks right now, 25.3 points per game. And I mean, you got to think after that clunker against Dallas, where he was still decent, he's giving you a 20 points per game floor pretty much every week. You got to think after last week that he's going to come out ready to play. Chiefs don't have anybody on the back end of the defense that could stop him and stay with Devonta Smith. I think Devonta Smith has a great bounce back here too. And so I think you're right on with that.
Rocking and rolling. Hurts, you starting him this week, Brad?
Oh, God, it's so gross. Like he just looks bad. He doesn't look good. I know he's putting good numbers up, but he's putting the numbers up just based on volume alone. I mean, this week he threw for over 300 yards, but the guy had almost 40 pass attempts. Quez Watkins had a couple deep balls. Devonta Smith didn't look good. Jalen Reagor didn't look good. It was just a rough outing for them. And I just don't know if I trust him. I know he's got that rushing floor. There's a freaking gnat flying around my bourbon right now. It's driving me bonkers. Yeah, I'm getting ready to straight judo chop this thing out of the air. But you can't not play him because of the rushing floor. You can't not play him because of the Kansas City defense and the fact they're going to need to throw the ball to keep up. So I think, yeah, you play. But if you're talking dynasty, I think I'm looking to move this guy right now in a dynasty league. But redraft, I'm going to ride him most likely.
I can dig it. Let's talk some guys we can't dig. Brad, I'm going to let you – this one's kind of been a letdown, a buzzkill, a boner dropper, whatever you want to call it, all year. We're talking Ryan Tannehill, man. And he's got the Jets, Jets, Jets. Talk to me, talk to us. Because when people see the Jets, they just think, oh, this shitty football team. But kind of show us the method to your madness as far as fantasy goes.
Yeah, and I could see this blowing right up in my face because of his rushing capabilities and what they do with him on the goal line. But I'm sitting him. I think really mainly it's game script and the fact that Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, it doesn't look like these guys are going to play this week. So they're going to lean on Derrick Henry the majority of this game. It's a game they should easily win against the Jets. The Jets are absolutely both defensively and offensively right now. So I just think it's a game where he's not going to need to throw. The game script is not in his favor. The fact that A.J. Brown and Julio might not play is not in his favor. And he hasn't looked great. I mean, outside of last week, he hasn't really done a whole lot for you. And I just want to see them get into a little bit of a rhythm that with that new offensive coordinator now that Arthur Smith is gone. So I'm holding until I see a couple weeks of for sure production from Ryan Tannehill and that offense.
And Jets are what, third fewest points allowed to quarterbacks? Crazy. When you think the Jets, you don't think that. And then no Julio, A.J. Brown, man, this is, I think, Firksker's out. This is a Derrick Henry game. It's got to be. What about you, Dave? What's going on with Tannehill, man? Is there light at the end of the tunnel, or is this just a fade till, regardless of what's going on in the matchup?
Well, I got to ask you guys, Derrick Henry's the most expensive player, I think, this week in DraftKings. Are you guys going to pay up for him?
Hell yeah.
It's a smash. Like 40-point game for Derrick Henry where you need to have him.
Yeah, if I'm in like a 50-50, then yeah, I probably am. In a tournament, I think that ownership's just going to be so high, he's not going to give you any kind of edge, I feel like, in a tournament. So, but yes, I mean, it's definitely like a 30-40 point game for sure for that guy.
Yeah, because I was struggling. Was like, should I pay up for him? I was like, it's one of those where you're like, I want to win a tournament. Like, if he has one of those like 40-point games, you're like, I'm most likely going to need to have him in order to like be at the top, 10%. But no, I mean, yeah, Ryan Tannehill, I do think that obviously he hasn't had his full healthy complement of weapons this year. Derrick Henry's more in the passing game too now, which is kind of interesting. But I think better days are ahead for him. And if this is a Derrick Henry game, which it looks like it might be, it may not be this week. So I think that's a good call with him being a fade. I do think, though, if you have some quarterback problems and someone has Tannehill as either their starter or their second quarterback, this would be the time to go ahead and try to buy low, because I do think he's going to bounce back. His time with the Titans, his like statistics and his rankings among quarterbacks amongst important categories are insane. Like his yards per attempt and play action passing, like he's always like in the top 3 in those categories since he's been with the Titans. So this week I'm fading. For the next few weeks after, though, I would try to acquire.
Guys, we're going to jump around here because we are getting some comments. We're going to go to the audience first. To me, this is a 50-50. Do you start at tight end, Fant or Conklin? You got Conklin from Minnesota. He's got Cleveland this week. Ew. Then you've got Fant going up against Baltimore. Double. Who are we going here, guys? These guys so far in fantasy points are like 9 and 10. So not much difference. Dave, I'll go to you first. Who are you starting? Are you starting Fant? Or are you getting a little risky with Conklin here?
I think I'm going Fant. I think he's the safer play here. I think the Browns-Vikings game is one of the highest point totals as far as what Vegas is predicting, but I think it's going to be a more of a wide receiver game. I could see Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson having a little bit more of an impact. Conklin, if you look the first few weeks, hadn't really done much. It was last week that kind of he stepped up and played a lot better, but Seattle's one of the worst defenses in the league. Cleveland has a much better pass rush, and I think it's not going to be a Conklin show there. Fant, I think you know what it is. He's the number 2 pass catcher in that offense, and the Ravens is not an easy matchup, but I do think that the floor is a lot safer with Fant. So if you have Fant, I'm definitely putting him in this week over Conklin.
Brad, Fant's coming off of a 3-point game. We got Conklin coming off a 7 for 70, 20-point fantasy outing. But he's got Baltimore. What are we doing here? Is it Fant or is it Conklin?
I'm rolling Fant. I'm not chasing that 20-point game that Conklin had last week. The volume's just not there for him. It was last week, but I want to see more before I take quite frankly, a waiver wire tight end. up against a team that, Joker, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is back and healthy, and he looked really good last week. So they're gonna, and he's a guy that can provide a little bit of pass defense. So I'm rolling with Noah Fant against the Baltimore Ravens, who they're going to need to keep up as well. We've already talked about how he's the number 2 behind Cortland Sutton. I just think the volume is there for him. It's a surefire thing. He's not fighting for targets, especially with KJ Hamler out now. So you're looking really at Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, and Noah Fant. And I just think the volume's there for Fant. It's a floor play for both, most likely. And Fant's more likely to get that for you, I feel like.
Well, that's the thing. Both the matchups are bad. Go with the talent. I'm going Fant as well. It's a sweep. Here's another one. To the frozen tundra we go at the quarterback position. It's not Dwayne Haskins. It's not Mason Rudolph. It's Big Ben. Dave, your sit of the week at quarterback. Fill us in.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if anybody's playing Big Ben in any league with the way he's been playing right now. 5.5 yards per attempt last week. That's just awful. That's pretty much like, I mean, you have him basically throwing as much as most running backs are getting on a first down carry. It's just completely awful. Deontay Johnson, you don't know if he's playing this week. Juju Smith-Schuster, you don't know if he's playing this week. Last week, Najee Harris had 19 targets, which you don't really want your running back to have 19 targets in a game. That just means that you have no type of passing attack, especially downfield. And he just looks washed, man. He looks done. And I'm not the first to say that. And it's just been kind of steadily going downhill every game. The Green Bay Packers, their defenses may not look like, you may think of them as the old Green Bay Packers where it's like, oh, there's just an offense that doesn't have much defense. They got some good players on that defense, and they're going to put up some points too. And that means that Ben's going to have to throw. And I'm just really, really like, could be one of those games I could easily see where if they get blown out to the point where they just take them out and they just put in, Dwayne Haskins or Mason Rudolph and just let them kind of finish out the game. So yeah, Ben should not be, even in a 2-quarterback league, Ben Roethlisberger should not be in your lineup this week.
It's just been ugly, man. It's been nonstop. Just can't get the ball down the field. And you see the O-line, how bad it is for the run game, for pass protection. It's going to get worse before it gets better, unfortunately, in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Brad, what are your thoughts on this? Let's just go say Big Ben. Is this the end of the road for him? Are you kind of in the same boat as Mendy over here?
100%. And you'll kind of see that as a theme as we progress through the remainder of our sits for this week. So, I mean, you can't trust him right now. You kind of saw the writing on the wall last year with their performance in the back half of the season. They started out phenomenal, right? 11-0, but a lot of people forget they did that on the back of that defense last year. And losing Bud Dupree, I think, was a bigger deal than what they realize. And if I'm not mistaken, they've lost Stephon Tuitt for some time this year as well. So they're just not the defense that they were last year, and you can see that without that defense keeping them in games, asking Ben Roethlisberger to sling the rock to keep them in games is just not working out for him.
Not working out at all. I'm going to talk my sit of the week. A guy I told everybody was fool's gold last week, and I feel even better this week. I'm looking for a dime. Top of the line. Danny Dimes is a sit all around. Show's over. Roses off the bush. We're talking 15 points last week against Atlanta. Oh. And now we've got to go for the first home game in New Orleans since a hurricane. I don't know if anybody's been to NOLA, but it's pretty damn loud. You're talking about a defense. 6 picks through 3 games. And now you've got poor old little Danny with banged up receivers. We don't know what kind of O-line we're going to see this week. To me, this is just stranger danger. I'm 5 feet away from Danny Dimes in this Giants offense. Like I said, I'm a Danny hater, so doing something fun like this, telling you to sit him against New Orleans, just, can't keep going into details. Guys, are you guys seeing Danny Dimes as a start in week 4? Dave?
No, I'm right there with you. I mean, that New Orleans defense has been really nasty, and Danny Dimes. I mean, you just saw last week what they did to the Patriots, and it's not like Danny Dimes is setting the world on fire with his passing. He's a good athlete, and he'll get some points with his legs, but no, I mean, you're not comfortably starting Danny Dimes this week against the Saints.
They didn't just do it to the Patriots. They did it to the freaking Green Bay Packers, people. Like, this is a defense that is stout, as bad as that offense has been. When you're averaging, 2 sacks a game, whatnot, and the picks are coming in, that Brad, talk me off of this. Am I just too hard on Danny Dimes, or is this just a terrible place to start him?
I mean, I'm with you. You don't start him, but I think he might have a surprisingly better game than what we may think he will. I don't want to discount what the Saints did in week 1, but I kind of am, because just go back and watch that game. That's not the Packers team that you saw in week 2 and week 3. It's just not. So I do kind of take that game with a grain of salt. But to your point, they're still getting a couple sacks every game. They're still forcing turnovers. But again, those turnovers came from Sam Darnold, which doesn't surprise me.
Right.
And a rookie quarterback in Mac Jones with the New England Patriots last week. So
when we're talking the quarterback 11, like, this guy's played pretty good with his feet, everything.
And his rushing is what's kind of gotten him up there, because he hasn't been the greatest passer, but the dude's getting quite a bit of rushing work. They're kind of letting him roll out. They're letting him do a little bit more. So I think he could have a decent week, but he's definitely not a top 15 guy in my eyes, where at that point, unless you're in a 16-team league and you have to play this guy, he's not making my lineup in any 12-team league.
When you got options like Baker against Minnesota, Heinke against Atlanta, I mean, there's just better options out there, even with his rushing floor, things like that. But you add the injuries, you add everything in it. I'm just not buying it, guys. RBs, receivers, tight ends. Let's talk RBs. Mixon's on the start list. Surprise, surprise. We're talking Jaguars and Bengals here in a minute, Brad. We'll go ahead and let's just go ahead and get Mixon out of the way. Talk us through, because I think people have been kind of disappointed by his overall production as far as points. Because what is he? I think he's like running back 10 on the season, something like that.
That's correct. He is an RB1.
RB1, but the touchdowns haven't been there. The carries have. So why is he your start?
So look, you talk about touchdowns, and I'm glad you brought that up, right? Joe Mixon is number 2 in the league in running back touches. This guy's he's getting volume, and everything that people talked about Najee Harris, which we'll talk a little bit. I'm going to peek behind the curtain. We're going to talk a little bit about Najee here later. It was always about volume. It was not about how good the offense was. We all knew the line was going to be bad. We knew the offense was going to be bad, but everyone wanted Najee Harris because of the volume. He hasn't touched the ball anywhere close to the number of times that Joe Mixon has touched the ball. Joe Mixon, like I said, he's number 2 in the league in running back touches. You want to know how many touchdowns the Jacksonville Jaguars have given up to just the running back position over 3 weeks? 5 touchdowns to the running backs. 2 to James Conner last week. 2 to Mark Ingram in week 1. And 1 receiving to David Johnson in week 1. Joe Mixon, this is his breakout game this week. I feel like the volume is going to be there. I feel like the touchdown upside is going to be there against a shitty defense and a great game script. So look for Joe Mixon to absolute smash, and it would not surprise me if he's the RB1 overall after this week is complete.
Wasn't last year against them when he had the one monster game too, when he played them?
It might have been, but I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah.
I'm like 90% sure that was the game.
Let me look it up now.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that was the game he smashed last year that, like, even though he didn't play a lot, when you look at his points per game average, that was the one game that, like, I think whatever it was, like 30.
Oh, yeah. He had 25 carries for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and then 6 for 30 and a touchdown through the air.
So he should go bonkers this week. This should be his, like, 30-point week almost, something like that. So here's
for some reason people are freaking out about, like, oh, he's not giving me the production that I wanted. Like, I mean, where'd you draft him if RB10 is not the right if
Right.
that's not a good ranking for him.
I can see it. It's hard for me when I'm doing this. Like, I always rank him right there at like 12 to 14. I like his upside, but but the matchup's there. I mean, you can't doubt that. Let's talk your start though. RB 18 on the season. We've got the full Monty. We've got David Montgomery against Detroit Rock City. Dave, fill me in on the full Monty.
Yeah, I mean, I think people were a little disappointed. He's only scored a little over 18 fantasy points over the last 2 weeks. But if you need a game to bounce back, of course, it's going to be against the Lions, who allowed 6 touchdowns and the 10th most fantasy points to running backs this season. You remember last year when he played them, scored over 27 fantasy points. And then if you look, obviously you're like, well, Baltimore, they just played Baltimore last week and they didn't do well on the ground. Like, nobody stood out. Well, if you look a little bit more in the box score, Lamar Jackson, 8.3 yards per carry. Latavius Murray, 4 yards per carry. Tyson Williams, 4.4 yards per carry. They just didn't get attempts. The running backs outside Lamar Jackson combined for 15 attempts in that game. They just threw the ball a lot. And that's just why the box score doesn't look as bad for the running backs against them. But every team is just destroying them on the ground, and it's a rivalry game. And I think that this game is Justin Fields, if he's the starter, who at this point right now, I think he will be. I think they're going to do a lot more RPO, which is going to open up a lot more running lanes, I think, for him to run. He's one of the best broken tackle running backs in the league. I think this is a game that you basically endured the last 2 bad starts. David Montgomery is going to be a top 10 running back this week. No doubt about it in my mind.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Brad, are you loving David Montgomery in this spot?
I think he's a good start. A top 10, I think, might be ceiling, but I love the boldness. And here's my issue. Matt Nagy is terrible at calling plays in games, right? So I'm a Browns fan, so I watched that game last week. And the play calling just did not set that team up for success in any way, shape, or form. It didn't utilize Justin Fields' skill set. He put him in terrible situations. So, but when you think, like, just go back and look at David Montgomery against the Rams, he looked explosive. He looked very good. He looked better than what I feel like he did in those 4 or 5 game stretch that he had at the end of the season last year against those really soft defenses that he played that led him to that RB4 finish. And we talked about that in the offseason. Hey, don't get too crazy, because that was like the number 2 softest rush schedule at the back half of the season where he got all of his points. But then you see him come in against a solid defense in the LA Rams and really produce. I was hoping for him that Andy Dalton would be back to being the starter, because that's going to help him. I just don't know if I trust Matt Nagy to make the right decision and make the right play calls. But David Montgomery, I mean, like you said, Detroit, how do you sit him against Detroit? You just can't. That defense is soft. And like I said, in week 1, he looked explosive, and I think that's the actual running back that he is.
I can dig it, dude. I love both these plays. I think Montgomery, Mixon, these guys, they're right where they're kind of ranked, right at that RB2 with RB1 weeks, in my opinion. Mixon's a RB1, I'll say it. But I'll tell you, I went a little more ballsy. I thought Miles Sanders again back-to-back weeks, but I was like, I can't trust Philly's offense. It's like, doesn't matter the matchup regardless. I can't just say he's going to give him the carries. So I went with the young blood, the waiver wire darling of week 4. I'm going to Canada, eh? I'm going Chuba Hubbard, baby. Oklahoma State, one of my favorite players. Please, God, let him pass protect, because if he is going to have a big game against Dallas. He ran efficiently. He got the snap share. We've seen what Mike Davis did in Carolina raise up. I think this guy's going to be magic. Like I said, between the holes, the speeds, anything and everything, and he got past volume. I like this guy, and I like his schedule coming up. Dallas, Philly, Minnesota, and the Giants. So start Chuba. Dude, week 4, we don't know when McCaffrey's going to be back. Let's start this guy. We know Dallas likes to bring pressure on the quarterback. Like I said, I just pray he got better at pass protection from college. I'm not turning you guys away by that, hopefully. But I'm going Chuba here, man. I think he could easily finish an RB1, RB15 floor. Dave, go to you first, man, because this is a waiver wire guy. Everybody's got questions because of where he was drafted, things like that. Fill me in on Mr. Hubbard.
Yeah, man, I mean, I think he had 14 touches and for 79 yards in that game. I think, like you said, the pass protection thing is going to be the big deal because Dallas has people that can get after the ball even without DeMarcus Lawrence. So if he can't protect Sam Darnold, then they'll put Royce Freeman in the game for protection. So I think as long as that's not a problem, then yeah, I mean, the guy's talented. The guy is definitely the better running back. And you already know that a running back in this Carolina offense, he's not Christian McCaffrey, but who's to say you can't be, half of Christian McCaffrey, which is still incredible. So I think it's a great call. I think he's got to be the favorite to lead this backfield. And, if you have him, you probably have 1 to 2 weeks where he's going to be a really serviceable RB2 for you.
Absolutely. Like I said, I believe in this guy's talent. I believe he is a natural running back who has the explosion, the vision, things like that. I worry more in the pass protection, the pass catching, but I think those are correctable errors. Brad, what do we got, baby? Tell me you're on board with Chuba. Don't break my heart. Don't break my ache, break your heart.
Eric, that's at Eric Burkholder 6 on Twitter. This is for you, buddy. I have nothing further of note to add. I agree. Right. I agree. I don't have any additional things there. I mean, the guy averaged almost 5 yards a carry last week against a porous Houston defense. They're doing a very similar defense in Dallas, who isn't really that great at stopping the run either. So I see a situation where even if he comes out on third downs, he's explosive enough to give you some big plays on limited volume. So I expect him to be in that 15 touch range, which you see guys like Melvin Gordon, 15 touches a game, startable. You see guys like Javonta Williams, 15 touches a game, startable. So you can start these guys in a flex. And now if you're starting them at RB1, RB2, I may be a little hesitant because I do see situations where he's coming off and Royce Freeman is the pass blocker there. And that's going to limit his upside a little bit, at least this week. So, but if you're looking at a flex play, I think he's definitely worth it.
When I don't think you take a guy like Darnold, who's been turnover prone throughout his career, and get in a gunfight with Dallas. I think you kind of do a little clock management. You try to take away from the Dallas offense. So I could see them trying to pick up first downs, not go for the big play, not getting a shootout. That's why he's my start, guys. We did starts. Let's rail these off real quick. Sits. I think both of you guys have very good sits. I agree 100%. Let's go yours, Brad, with Mr. Harris.
Yeah, this is the theme, right? So we talked a little bit earlier about Ben Roethlisberger. Now my sit is going to be Najee Harris against the Green Bay Packers. Look, he's averaging an absolute putrid 3.1 yards per carry. I think it's just shy of 3.1. Now, the reason he was so startable last week is because he got 19 targets. He led the entire league in targets, like across all positions, 19 at the running back position. That is not sustainable. That is not going to happen. That happened because Deontay Johnson was out. That happened because Juju Smith-Schuster got hurt and was out, and Chase Claypool does not play that short game. So to me, you're going into a game where it looks like Deontay Johnson's going to start. Juju is a little bit more questionable, it feels like. But those targets are going to get soaked up by Deontay Johnson, those 10, 11, 12 targets that he's been seeing all year long. So now you're looking at a 6 or 7 target game from Najee Harris and against the Green Bay Packers, who are really freaking good against the running back position. Now, I know they've given up a few yards, right? They gave up 91 yards to Alvin Kamara in week 1 in the New Orleans Saints. They gave up just over 100 yards to the Detroit Lions in week 2. And then San Francisco last week, kind of a hodgepodge. I almost want to throw that game out because of Trey Sermon and Kyle Juszczyk and that whole, situation that San Francisco had going for them. But here's the deal. Those numbers, all 3 of those teams, according to PFF, have top 10 rated rush offensive lines, run blocking offensive lines. Pittsburgh is not anywhere close to the top 10. Not anywhere fucking close. So they are going to absolutely smash Najee Harris. And I am very worried about him even season long at this point moving forward.
Man, it's just a shit show. That's what we're going to come away with from these sits is Pittsburgh just – it doesn't look good. It's just negative Nancy over there. Guys, Harris, Dave, quick thoughts on Harris. Are you starting him over, a David Montgomery?
I probably am not starting him over David Montgomery, but if you have him, you're playing him just because of the draft capital you spent on him. And at the end of the day, volume is king in fantasy football. Because if you're getting volume, most likely you have more opportunities for fantasy points. So if he's getting catches and, he's getting carries, they may not look good. It may be 2.5 yards a carry and it may be 5-yard dump offs, but those are going to equivalent to points. And he's getting all the running back snaps. No other running backs even sniffing the field. So he's an RB2 this week. And, right now his upside you're not getting 19 targets from him every week, obviously, but no, he's not going to, for me, sniff the top 12 this week. So he'll be an RB2.
Look at you guys talking Najee Harris. You know what this reminds me of? Like, I feel like I'm watching Sister, Tia and Tamara over here. My favorite. We had Najee Harris. Now I'm bounce passing it to Dave with Damien Harris. Fill us in on Damian and why he is a sit this week, Dave.
I mean, insert running back going against Tampa Bay here. I mean, there's not much that needs to be said, honestly. They have the best run defense in the league. And, maybe statistically, it might not be the best. I think it's like 2 or 3. But either way, that they stuff the middle of that line every single time. Running backs do not succeed against Tampa Bay unless you're lucky and you get short touchdowns against them. It's a stout front. The Patriots are also have no shot in this game. I don't know what the line is, but I'm definitely taking the over as far as, for the I think they're going to get blown out. And if you're getting blown out, the game script's not going to favor any running back in that game. If anything, it's going to favor a pass catching running back like a JJ Taylor, who I picked up in a few leagues, that he's going to step in for James White and just be able to dump off. Damien Harris isn't the guy that catches passes. I will be genuinely shocked. Like if Damien Harris even reaches double-digit fantasy points, like 10 points is not a great game, but I don't think he even sniffs that. I think he's going to have, 4, 5, 6 points, and if you have him, you got to bench him this week.
Those New England running backs just never sexy. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Brad, are you right there with the man? Is Harris just kind of not really offer the upside as a lot of the other RB2s?
Nope, not even close. We're not even close. I mean, I see a game where he gets like 12 carries for 40 yards, right? And I'd be shocked if he breaks 5 points, to be completely honest with you. I mean, they're going to be down quick. He's going to come off the field. And, I mean, you bring up J.J. Taylor. You see some of the work that he did in the preseason and how he looked last year in the preseason. He's a very valuable pass catcher. So there's a world where he outproduces Damien Harris this week, and I'm just not anywhere. I'm not sniffing this dude anywhere right now. I just don't think the volume's going to be there, and the matchup is not good.
I can dig it. Those sounds like 2 farts, and I want neither one of them on my team. I'm going to a fart in Miami. Myles Gaskin. We talked this guy up all offseason. Oh, Matty, we're going to get the carries. We're going to get the catches. We're not getting the production, man. We're splitting the backfield with Malcolm Brown. We're not even getting the red zone looks. Now you're going to the Colts, who get after the quarterback, get pressure on it, and you got Brissett as your quarterback. To me, they can try to manage the game. Yeah, it's the Colts. They suck too. But I'm higher on this defense than most. I'm not touching Myles Gaskin after having a 10 to 12-point game. Yeah, I guess that's an okay floor, but there's no ceiling with Myles Gaskin, in my opinion. Are you a Gaskin truther, Brad?
I'm not, but I'm okay putting him in my flex, and the main reason is the caveat is it needs to be a PPR league. I mean, the guy's getting 5 or 6
He gets
targets a
some
game, right? So now I know his yards per catch are not very good, right? I think last week he had like 6 catches for just over 20 yards or something like that. So it's not like he's doing a lot with that work, but the volume that he's getting in the run game, 13 or so, 10 to 13 carries, plus those 5 or 6 targets, I think it gives you a startable asset in a flex position, but only in PPR, not in half point PPR and not in a standard league. I'm steering away from this guy. I'm worried about just Miami in general. I thought they were going to be a little bit better team than what they look like right now. And that's even before Tua got hurt. They didn't look great with Tua. So I may be kind of fading most of these assets right now outside of Jalen Waddle because he seems to be getting a large bulk of that passing work. So, but PPR leagues, I'm okay starting him. If not, I'm benching him.
I mean, the nice part about 3 catches for 9 yards, you still get 3.9 points. So it's not terrible. I'm just not seeing any production. Dave, is this a guy that you maybe are targeting, thinking he'll turn it around going forward?
You have to hope so. I mean, he was mentioned, PPR, he's definitely a better play than non-PPR. Malcolm Brown getting the touches that he's getting right now is definitely not encouraging. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett at quarterback is not making people scared of the pass, and they're going to obviously play a little bit more closer up. They're not going to play back. Jacoby Brissett has a big arm, but his yards per attempt is not great. So, yeah, I mean, at this point right now, if you have Gaskin, you're holding, and you probably have to play him because your options, I'm sure, behind him aren't great. But, yeah, I mean, you're not excited about it. Hopefully down the road, there'll be better days, but right now it's not great.
Not great. All right, so let's get to one more question. This guy's got a trade dilemma. Pretty easy. He's looking to trade Carson and Deontay, Pittman, Fuller, Kirk, or more in a 10-man 0.5 PPR or half-point PPR. So he's basically trying to add another talent, high-level talent. So you've got Carson, and you're offering probably Pittman, I'd say, because he's having back-to-back-to-back good games, trying to get a 1, basically. Who's the one you're targeting? Are you targeting like a DeAndre Hopkins, thinking he's going to bounce back? Is Carson, let's just go with Pittman. I'd say Pittman's probably the most prized receiver out of this group right now, would you say, over Deontay?
Yeah, if you're looking at the recency bias, yeah, Pittman
Right.
for sure, because Fuller looks, who knows what with Fuller. Deontay's hurt. And, I mean, if you're
Kirk and Moore just switch off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's DJ Moore. Yeah, if you can do Christian Kirk, like I always try to obviously go low ball first. So if you can throw Christian Kirk in there, who's been kind of hot to start out the year, do it. And then if they say no, then you can then go to Pittman, and that way it's like you're starting out low, and if they say no, looks like you're being flexible, upgrading, and
Right.
then from there, you can keep
Well, name
countering.
like a receiver maybe that's kind of had like a Woods. Obviously, Carson, I think, has been solid so far. So you're looking for a 1. Would you say like a Hopkins who's had 26, 15, and 5 the first 3 weeks? Would this be a guy you're targeting moving forward? Would you be trying to get a little more consistency? Would that get you a cup, you think? A guy like that? Who are we going here? What do you think we can get for Carson and let's just say Pittman?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Hopkins definitely right now might be more of a buy low. So why not? You could definitely try. Obviously, someone like Cooper Kupp his value is sky high right now. So I don't even know if that nets you Cooper Kupp for the Cooper Kupp owner. But again, kind of those underperforming wide receiver ones right now. That definitely is where I would try to target first. Again, like a DeAndre Hopkins, I think would be a good ask, and just
Wide
doesn't hurt.
receiver 23 is Hopkins and Diggs, right around that mark on the year.
Diggs was the name I had in my head. He's super low right now, and he's not going to stay there. And people are panicking about Diggs. So I feel like you might even be able to get something on top of Diggs, especially if this is a redraft league, moving Carson and Pittman, who've had hot starts for the both of them. I think you might be able to get Diggs and something for the two of them right now, depending on how much that owner is tilting.
Even Metcalf's wide receiver 17 on the year. So there's some their receivers just a gold mine right now because people freak out. Yeah, running backs, I think you'd be a little more patient. I like Carson rest of the way still. Why are we're getting like a ton of trade questions from YouTube. So basically what happened was Twitter won't let you answer questions or get questions for like a month. So our YouTube's blowing up with all these start sit questions. So if you guys are cool with it, we'll kind of maybe skip over our guys and let's answer some start sits.
Is it for a month? Like, is there actual timeline? Because I was
Yeah,
wondering.
they said a month of no Twitter questions. Like that's how long
weird.
it takes them to fix that. I was like, yeah, that sucks. Because I mean, what's the point of doing
like
a live
polls?
show?
You can't put a poll up.
No, like when we're doing a live video stream, we're getting no Twitter.
It's not populating.
None of them are showing up.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, kind of. It definitely defeats the purpose of doing a live. But we have. Here's another one, guys. Start Godwin or CD. Who do we got? Dallas has obviously Carolina, and we've got Godwin, Tampa Bay. Who are they playing?
The
New England.
Oh, and I don't think Gilmore's healthy. So what are you doing here, Brad? Are you going CD just for vol? I mean, both these teams are volume-based offenses.
Yeah, I'm going Godwin. I think that team goes in there to just lay the fucking hammer to Bill Belichick, and they're not going to lay up. They're going to let it go. I think they're going to rip it. I mean, you can see they don't trust the running game at all, right? So I think Godwin's a good. I don't think you can really go wrong with either one, but my preference right now is Godwin over CeeDee Lamb. I think Amari Cooper's been quiet 2 weeks in a row. He's getting back from his injury. I think this is kind of a bounce back game for Amari Cooper. So I may not look to start CeeDee Lamb over Godwin in this situation.
I love me some Amari Cooper. I feel like he's just so disrespected. Dave, are you on Godwin here in New England, or are you going CD?
No, I mean, yeah, Brad took exactly what I was going to say. Honestly, like I think this is a Amari Cooper week. I think this is, last week people kind of were looking in that direction, but I think this is the bounce back game. And Chris Godwin obviously is going to be a big part of that passing offense and for Tampa Bay. Gronk's going to get in the end zone. Obviously, they're going to make sure he gets a touchdown. But outside of that, it's an open game. They may put up, 45, 50 points in this game. So Godwin, I think, will get a piece of that pie. I'm going Godwin.
All right. We got another one here, guys. Higbee or Pitts? We got Higbee against Arizona. We have Pitts against Washington. Some tough matchups here. Are you going to the third on the totem pole with this high-powered offense with Higbee? Or are you going to probably second in command here that's kind of started slow in Atlanta? What are your thoughts, Dave?
Kyle Pitts all the way for this one. This is also, I think, the game that Kyle Pitts comes and announces that he was the best tight end prospect since Vernon Davis. I think he's going to have a great game. The Washington football team defense has been absolutely awful. And I think obviously they could turn it around at any point. But if we're looking at what we've seen right now, I think this is the get right game for Pitts. Higbee, I'm a little bit more concerned about. He's, obviously he's going to be a top 10 tight end, but I don't think it's nearly as consistent. And Pitts is still running a ton of routes, and he's the number 2 option there. Kyle Pitts all the way for me.
Brad, Pitts or Higbee?
I've got to go Higbee. My problem with Pitts is he's not getting open, right? Yeah, he's getting 6, 8 targets a game before last week I feel like was a little bit of a fluky game with the Giants where he only ended up with 3 targets in the total. But those first 2 weeks, it's not impressive to me. I just don't know if I want to roll him out with what everybody thought his ceiling was, right? Everybody was ready to anoint him the next coming of God on the football field at the tight end position. And I'm just not I'm not ready for that. I would much rather go with Tyler Higbee on an offense that we've seen absolutely light it up. And he's had 5 targets or more in a couple games this year. He did have one where I think week 2 he had maybe 2 targets, if that. I want to say I was really disappointed in his volume in that game, but I'm going Higbee. I just don't. I think it's more I don't trust Atlanta right now. Arthur Smith is not looking like he's really making the right decisions as a head coach right now. Matt Ryan is playing really bad. I'm steering away from anything that has to do with Atlanta until further notice.
I'm on board. I'm saying Higbee as well. I'm a fan. I think the targets will get increased as people figure out their offense. You'll just see more looks. I'm digging it. Here's another one, guys, real quick, and then we'll move on. Kind of wrap up start sits. Trade Robert Woods, Mike Evans, Chase Claypool, good God, Rondell Moore for Robbie Anderson and Tyreek and PPR. He's got the wide receiver depth. He's got Marvin Jones. So he's trying to basically go Marvin Jones, Tyreek, Robbie Anderson from Woods, Evans, Claypool, Rondell Moore. What's going on with Tyreek here, Dave? Is he ready for the bounce back? Obviously, with Patty Mahomes, that's a plus. So what do you think here for Tyreek?
I mean, he's a stud, so you have to hope he bounces back. The problem is that teams right now are basically double covering him every game, and that's been the formula the last few weeks is we're going to let everybody else beat you, including Travis Kelce, and we're just going to make sure Tyreek Hill isn't making those big game-breaking plays. We'll let you, dink and dunk us down the field with Kelce, and if teams keep doing that, it's hard for any receiver to beat double coverage. I don't care how good you are. So if that stays, that's going to be a problem. The Chiefs will have to figure out how to scheme him and get him the ball. Maybe quick throws, obviously, reverses, anything that can get the ball in his hands. But when you're looking at Robbie, you have to be concerned about Robbie Anderson right now because he's getting less of a target share than even Terrace Marshall, who's the rookie coming in. And they just re-signed Robbie Anderson to a contract. So
it makes no sense, right?
Yeah. If there's a week that if Robbie Anderson does not do well this week, and it was one of my guys we were going to talk about sitting was the guy that's the Carolina receiver everybody wants going against Trayvon Diggs, who is right now PFF's #1 cover corner. Ooh. So if he's most likely going to take him out of the game to where he's not going to be very fantasy relevant. That's the expectation. So if Robbie Anderson can't capitalize in this situation, then all hell's going to break loose and people are going to be cutting him. So I don't know how comfortable I am starting Robbie Anderson going forward, even if he has a great game this week. So this is one of those situations where you just like putting all your chips in the middle and you're going to go all in with Tyreek Hill and Robbie Anderson, or are you going to play it safe and have, the depth that you built in case of injury? I think at this point I like going the safer route, but maybe you guys feel differently.
Brad?
I think I'd take Tyreek Hill. I'm one. So I'm assuming we're going to assume this is redraft, right? Because Dynasty, my answer is totally different. So in a redraft, I don't want rookie wide receiver, right? So Rondell Moore is a throw in. He had a splash week, and I'm not counting on that. So he's kind of out. So now I'm looking at Woods, Evans, and Claypool. Evans to me is you either get a huge game or you get a 2 catches for 13 game. So Evans, you have to have the floor to maintain, to be able to win. And you're not getting a floor out of Robert Woods. You're not getting a floor out of Chase Claypool. You're not getting a floor out of Rondell Moore. So you're kind of screwed with that lineup. So, and Chase Claypool, my big worry is he's that deep threat, and Ben Roethlisberger just can't do it right now. And Robert Woods, we've seen the disappointment with him and the target share that he's getting in LA. I expect that to change a little bit. He's just too good of an overall wide receiver to stay where he's at with volume. But I'm going with the game breaker Tyreek Hill, especially when I've got wide receiver 18 or whatever he is in Marvin Jones, and then Jacoby Myers, who's a solid floor play every week as well. I'm going with that week winning upside that Tyreek Hill can give me outside of the 4 guys that really aren't doing me any good because probably can't start all 4 of them anyway. And they're really underperforming. And I kind of expect it to stay that way for the majority of the season.
Well, and that's the thing. He's basically trading a bunch of wide receiver 2, 3, 4s, and he's getting Tyreek Hill and Robbie you can spot start hopefully. And he's got Marvin Jones, who's wide receiver 20 on the year. It's not like he's left empty-handed. He's got Jacoby Myers, who he could play, but if you got Hill that can put up 50-point games, if things work around, if Josh Gordon works out, if things happen the way we hope they am, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going Tyreek because I know I'm not going to win every week with Woods, Evan, Claypool.
Yeah, it sucks because if you look at this, you're probably trading your 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks for a 1st round pick. Like
Crazy.
That hurts. That hurts.
Yeah, I mean,
that
but that
shows how much Woods and Evans have
10-man league though. You have to have those difference makers to have a difference. All right, let's just real quick. We don't have to go into discussion because I think we owe the audience. I'll definitely make a graphic of this and show it on our social media so people can see it. Wide receiver starts, guys. Brad, you had Brandon Ayuk. Just kind of a quick hitter explanation because we got a lot of show left. Kind of give me a minute of Brandon Ayuk.
Snap count, right? You see a snap count go up over the last 3 weeks. You saw his involvement go up last week. I think I'm just putting my chips in on him, and I think this is going to be a big week against a Seattle team that is not great against the pass to begin with. So Brandon Ayuk snaps. He's on the field almost all of them. I think it was over 80% this past week against Green Bay Packers, and you saw him get involved. They gave him a couple of rushing attempts. They gave him, plenty of passing down work. So I expect that trend to continue. And now is the time to get in on him before he explodes. So,
Dave, Robert Woods. We just got done talking about him in these comments. Kind of fill us in real quick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been Cooper Kupp season, 38% target share, tied for 2nd in the league in targets. I think this is the week that Robert Woods at least bounces back in some way. Arizona he's done well against them. He's got at least 18.5 fantasy points in 4 of the last 5 games against them, 3 of those being 20 or more points. He seems like he likes going against them. Obviously, at some point, teams are going to have to do something to Cooper Kupp to make sure that he's not beating them. I think this is the week. So I have Robert Woods in a lot of lineups, and I feel comfortable about it this week.
I can dig it. I'm going Brandon Cooks. Volume alone, targets, what he's done production-wise. I don't care who he's playing or who's throwing it to him. You start him regardless. Let's go with some sits. We just talked Claypool. We talked how bad Pittsburgh is. You went Claypool here. Give us a real rundown. Is it just Big Ben in general? Because he got the targets. He's got
2 words.
Juju. Just
2 words. Jair Alexander. Those are the 2 words, right? I mean, you've seen him shut down people over and over again. I want to say he's a top 12. I think he's like number 11, right, in PPF rated coverage corner. Now, you don't know who's going to be playing, right? It looks, like I said, it's trending towards Deontay Johnson playing, but Juju might not. So that's going to help a little bit, but I still think Jair Alexander stays on Chase Claypool for the majority of his routes. The only likelihood would be if they move Chase Claypool to the slot, and they've only, I want to say like 2 or 3 of his catches have come out of the slot this year. So he's just not running a lot. He's not playing that big slot role because that's what Juju does. So I just expect him to be matched up against one of the best cover corners in the game. And I'm not looking that, coupled with Ben not being able to throw the ball. He's on my bench this week.
On your bench, you're staying there. Simmer down now. All right, we got DJ Moore. Fill us in on this. You kind of did earlier, just real quick.
Yeah, so this is all coming down to the matchup, and he's going against, supposed to be shadowed by Diggs, who has given up 10 catches this year on 20 targets. You look, Mike Evans had 3 for 24. Keenan Allen had 4 catches. Devonta Smith had 3 for 28, and he has 3 interceptions, 1 in each game, I believe. He's the number 1 cover corner according to PFF. Passer rating against a 41.3. Arguably, DJ Moore, maybe you're putting him 3rd on this list as far as receivers, 2nd, but he's shown that he's been on another level this year. That I'm just a little concerned. I know DJ Moore's a very talented player, and obviously if you have him, you're most likely going to play him. I would just temper your expectations. If you're like in a 10-team league where you have a bunch of different options you can play, I'm a little bit more off DJ Moore for this week.
I can dig it. Mine comes down to
Suck it,
confidence.
Andy. I'm just going to throw that out there real quick.
Dude.
Yeah.
McClovin, he wrote our Start Sit article this week that dropped today. Check out the website, www.ffaffair.com, managed by our very own Eric Burkholder at Eric Burkholder 6. So much good stuff there, as well as our YouTube, Facebook, you name it, we've got it. Mine's a confidence thing. Hollywood Brown, 3 drops. I want to see it. I don't think this team, when I was looking at it, they don't allow, versus the Broncos in Mile High, they don't allow the big play. We're getting a lot of YouTube questions. So yeah, I'm not starting Hollywood till further notice. Let's get to another question, and then we'll, like I said, if we have to cut down some stuff, we will. Guys, we got another one. 12-man PPRBs are Eckler, Swift, Clyde, Damien Harris, Sermon, Connor. Wide receivers. Should I trade Swift, Hawkinson for Hill, Hurts, Pitts? That doesn't sound...
Not even close.
No.
Yeah.
For me. Not even close.
Yeah, not for me either.
Andrew, don't do it. It's not worth it. I mean, Hawk's better than Pitts right now, and you've got Hill and Hurts for, is it super flex? Even if Swift's on fire, man. He's got to be, top 3 RB so far?
He's number 3. Number 3. Believe me, I've been rubbing it in because I got some shit about a trade I made in the offseason for him.
I'll be honest, I didn't think Swift was going to do it either, but it's ridiculous. Like, just the talent, situation. It's their tight end starts real quick.
Anthony Lynn.
So good.
Sorry, moving on.
All good. Let's see here.
Oh, I threw you off.
Gotcha. Dave, we're gonna hit you with. I know you got school tomorrow. I know you gotta wake up and educate minds. We're gonna finish it off with the start sits, then we'll get to the showdown solo. So before we get out of here, let's talk a little tight ends. Let's talk starts. Dave, you went Dawson Knox, Hard Knocks of the Buffalo Bills. Man, this guy's been on fire. Tell me more.
Yeah, he's got touchdowns in his last 2 games right now, and he seems like he's the guy that I think everybody's expecting that the Buffalo Bills are going to absolutely destroy the Houston Texans. So why not him get involved, especially when the game's out of reach and they're going to probably bench some of the guys like Stephon Diggs or Emmanuel Sanders that don't need to be in the game. He could benefit from that. It's obviously a gamble with him. But again, he's caught 10 to 12 targets this year, averaged 10.7 yards per catch. I think you could do a lot worse than Dawson Knox. When there's a game there's this many points expected for the Bills, I think he's a pretty good play for you if you're kind of searching for streamers at tight end.
Searching for a streamer. Brad, when we did the show sheet earlier, you did not give me a tight end start. Does that just mean you don't want to start any of them?
I don't really. This is always the hardest thing, right? Because to me, if you're streaming, if you don't have one of those top 3 or 4 guys, and really it's probably 5, I'm looking at who do I think is going to give me a touchdown, because nobody else is really getting target volume outside of those folks. So now I'm looking at, okay, well, what about like a Dallas Goedert? Because I love Dallas Goedert, but he's not getting volume, so you're counting on the touchdown. And you saw what Zach Ertz did the other night, so I'm not going with Dallas Goedert. For me, I can't go through one of these shows without a Cleveland Brown on the list. And I'm going to go Austin Hooper, a guy that you've seen produce on limited volume. A guy he's only not caught one ball that was thrown his way. He's very consistent, sure-handed. They run a ton. And when I say a ton, I would be shocked if it's under 40% of 2 or more tight end formations. They always have 2 tight ends on the field. It's ridiculous. They probably, it's something I'm going to look up. I'll throw it on Twitter. They probably run the most 3 tight end sets by a large margin out of anybody else in the NFL, because they've got 3 tight ends who can catch the ball and block. So, but I think Austin Hooper in a game against Minnesota, I think it's going to be a little bit of a high score. I want to say the over-under is 53.5. So that implies there's going to be a lot of points scored. Cleveland's going to, with Jarvis Landry out, you haven't really seen much out of Donovan Peoples-Jones or Rashard Higgins. So the tight ends are really kind of where that ball's going outside of Odell last week. So I think Austin Hooper ends up with a touchdown and is a streamable tight end for you this week.
I can dig it. I can dig it hard. Mine came down to, what did I want? Did I want to go to Philadelphia and try to guess which tight end's going to score a touchdown or have a good game? Or like we said earlier, Tyler Higbee, man, when he has to play in a matchup that it's a shootout, he's producing over 10 points. To me, that's safe. You're getting enough targets, and you might get lucky with the touchdown. I'm going Higbee's here. Let's sit him down. I'm going to sit down Mike Gesicki. This is a guy. Is this your – no, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy is not that good. I'm not doing the smoke and mirrors. Like I said, 3 touchdowns allowed in 8 games here, 50 yards. Dude, I don't want this. I don't want this beast of – I think Indianapolis's defense is way better than expected. It just sounds like I'm sitting on my Dolphins. So, Gesicki, you out of here. Dave, this guy feels like we just wait on him to pop off in the dynasty aspect. We always get left with our dick in our hand. Let's talk Evan Ingram.
Yeah, I mean, you just hear the name, it already sounds disgusting, honestly. But if you look, he had 6 targets last week, which is good, but he had lost a fumble, which isn't good. And we just talked about this vaunted Saints defense, who we don't expect Daniel Jones to have a good game. So by correlation, Evan Ingram I don't think is going to have a good game here either. They're pretty tight against the tight ends too. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of better places you can go here than Evan Ingram. So definitely do not play him.
Don't play him. Brad, are you still on with Gesicki with me?
I'm on with Gesicki for you, but I've got just a little bit of a different opinion on Evan Ingram, and I've got this weird love for Evan Ingram. Don't ask me why. I don't know. But here's the deal. Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton may not play. If they don't play, there's nowhere else for the ball to go other than Kenny Golladay, who's going to get his 6 or 7 targets, and then Evan Ingram and Saquon. So
Colin Johnson came on last week. I think he had 7 targets.
This is true. 6'6" phenom sensation. Jacksonville dropped his ass last year. They picked him up. It's the possibility. But the simple fact is Evan Ingram is still one of the most athletic people on the field when he's on the field. The problem is he can't catch the ball. And 2, he drops it. He fumbles the ball a lot. He's got a lot of drops, right? Whether it's before he catches it or after he catches it. So you've got to deal with that, which kind of sucks. I just think the guy's super talented he's super athletic, I'll say. Maybe not talented is the right word, but I definitely not comfortable starting the guy, but in a pinch, if you need to stream him, I don't think it's terrible because I do think the volume might be there.
Dude, we did it. Start, sits. Mendy, you brought the fire, you brought the desire, and you didn't cuss. You're here with a couple of animals. Knowing you had school in the morning, probably don't recommend all your teachers, all your fellow students to watch this one, or do. Maybe they like this kind of language. But thank you for coming on, dude. We appreciate everything you bring to the community, to the industry. Give me your winner for Thursday night, Jags or Bengals?
Well, first, thanks for having me. And yeah, I don't know why I didn't when I'm on our show, I don't curse, but like usually when I'm on other shows, I'm like, all right, as long as I can do it, I'm going to fucking do it. So there you go. I'm definitely going to drop that in there. I got the Bengals easily in this one. I think their defense is going to just overwhelm Trevor Lawrence, who's thrown 7 picks already this year. Looks completely awful. So he's obviously learning. And like we talked about, it's a Joe Mixon game. I don't know if it's going to be like a smashing, but I do think the Bengals will win comfortably in this one.
I can dig it. Dude, Dave, get out of here, man. Get some sleep. We appreciate everything you do, my man. We'll talk again. Till next time, at DMendy02, doing a lot of good stuff, a lot of good guests. Make sure you check out Triple Play Fantasy. Check out their YouTube channel. A lot of big things going on. Thank you, Dave.
Hey, y'all are the best. Thanks again for having me. Have a good night, guys.
Appreciate it, bud. Yep.
Later, man. Oh, wait. Brad, dude.
Oh
Let's keep
man,
it
you kicked
going.
me out.
No way, Jose. Dude, let's talk. We're going to talk Thursday night. I'll be honest, I've had 4 beers during the stream. I got to drain the main vein, but you have a trade question here. Let's just say tight end premium PPR. Whale over here has a question about Mixon for Fant and Waller. I'm going to let you handle it, and I'll be right back.
All right, cool. So I'm assuming with this offer, you've got a little bit of running back depth. Otherwise, it should not even be an offer. Here's the deal, though. There's an advantage that you can get with Darren Waller that you're not going to get at any other position. He is the alpha. He is the guy that gets the targets. To me, Darren Waller gives you a huge advantage in any league whatsoever. A lot of leagues, the winners are going to have one of those top tier tight ends in it because it's such a positional advantage. There's such positional scarcity over what you see at the running back position, especially this year. You're seeing guys like Chase Edmonds and Naeem Hines give you serviceable weeks that you can plug and play every year. So I'm going to make the assumption that Joe Mixon is not your RB1. You've got some players that can fill in there, and I am smashing this trade for Darren Waller in a redraft league in the hopes that I can go to a championship and have that positional advantage over my opponent who is there with maybe a TJ Hawkinson or a Mark Andrews or something like that. I'm going in with tight end 2 right now because I can't put anybody above Travis Kelce, and I'm going to go Darren Waller. Look, this guy had – what was it? Something ridiculous week 1. It was like 19 or so targets. And while, yes, Joe Mixon gives you that volume, I mentioned earlier in the show that he is the number 2 running back in touches overall. I just can't go with that moving forward. You know, when T. Higgins is healthy and Jamar Chase is still there, they're going to be looking to move the ball quite a bit. They're going to spread it out, and Tyler Boyd's still an option. So while, yes, in certain game scripts, Joe Mixon is going to continue to be that bell cow guy, I just don't know that it's sustainable, not to mention the fact that he tends to screw you with injuries in the back half of the season. You know, you look at last year, he had a 5 or 6 game stretch where he's really, you know, he had a couple good games and a couple duds, but then he went out with this kind of weird ankle injury, and then he was going to play, but then they held him out, and then he was going to play again, and they held him out, and then he missed the rest of the season, which screwed me because I moved for him after that in an effort to make a playoff push, thinking he was coming back. So to me, I'm taking that tight end to that positional advantage in Darren Waller over Mixon and Fan.
Oh, Darren Waller. Waller the baller.
FYI. Yeah.
Did you have him in Scott Fish? Was that you or no? Was that Berkey?
Yes, I
that
took
was you.
him in the first round of the Scott Fish Bowl. Yeah.
Nice. I am 1 and 2 respectively in the Scott Fish Bowl. Don't ever draft Trevor Lawrence thinking he's going to turn water into wine as a rookie. Didn't happen. Let's get to that though, man. Let's talk the game of games. This is one we thought would be a little closer coming into week 4. We've got Vegas has a 45-point over-under. Are you going over or under 45 points, Brad?
I'm going to go under 45 points.
Under 45. Under. Okay. Hey, Thrive Fantasy, #prop up, promo code FFAffair, all caps, guys. Enter now, deposit, they match it, and they give you a free ticket to the Thursday showdown for $15,000. Not only that, they're also doing Sunday ticket giveaways. Brad, what you got for me, baby?
Yeah, so real quick about Thrive, right? We use the term props a lot. And when people think props, they think Vegas betting and things like that. And you may think, oh, I can't do Vegas betting in my state, right? I live in Ohio. You can't do sports betting in Ohio. You can, in fact, do Thrive Fantasy because it is considered daily fantasy sports betting. It's not nor your typical Vegas stuff. So check it out. Even if you're in a state that doesn't allow that sports betting, it's awesome. I love it. It's a parlay with benefits of I can still win money if you lose on one of the player props, right? I can parlay 10 players together, only get 8 of them and still be in the money. So it's a huge benefit, especially if you're really good and tend to have some luck with some of those player props. So check it out for sure.
I can dig it. Let's talk quarterbacks, man, because we have this matchup. We've got Burrow, QB 19 on the year, 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Kind of been off and on, but he's been pretty on so far. Is this just a smash spot for Mr. Joey B?
I don't know if it's a smash, right? And that kind of coincides with my start of the week at the running back position of Joe Mixon. I don't know if they're going to need to or desire to, right? You saw Teddy Bridgewater not need to do that. And I just don't know that it's going to be something that he needs to air the ball out, right? So I'm going to go with, if you need to start him, you're fine. It's not like he's going to lay a dud, but he's also not going to win you a week. I think there's a floor there. I wouldn't expect any less than maybe like a 15-point game or something like that. But it's definitely not, to me, a smash start.
So you would say probably outside your top 15 for week 4.
You say QB 19. I think that's probably a solid landing spot for him by the end of the week.
I can dig it. I agree right with you. Like you said, we saw what Mixon did last year. I think he's getting the touches. You get a matchup like this, I mean, you've got to love it. This is a smash spot. He's not playing Pittsburgh. He's not playing Chicago. He is playing Jacksonville, who's just getting rid of players left and right. Give it to me and give it to me now. What about Lawrence, though, man? QB 28 on the year. If you would have told me through 3 games Lawrence would have been this bad with, decision-making, things like that, obviously he's going to get sacked because it's Jacksonville. But is there light at the end of the tunnel with Lawrence right now? Because you can't even start him in most leagues.
I don't know. He turns the ball over a lot right now. I feel like some of that is Urban Meyer's fault, not necessarily Trevor Lawrence's fault. Obviously Trevor Lawrence is still making the decision, so the majority of that lies in his lap. I just don't think the play calling is right for that team. You saw them start to transition a little bit last week with James Robinson, start to get him the ball in the backfield, start to throw him the ball a little bit more, which I think is, to me, is the recipe for success for them. And success does not mean a playoff team. Success just means being competitive. And they're not even competitive right now. They're putting Trevor Lawrence in position where he feels like he's got to throw the ball into coverage, and it is not working out. So I am not touching Trevor Lawrence right now. He's not anywhere near my starting lineup. It's just the Cincinnati Bengals are actually really pretty damn good against the quarterback right now. They are top quartile of the league against the quarterback position. So I'm not touching him in this situation at all.
I mean, you just look at the matchups. Houston, 25 points. Then he played Denver, Arizona, under 8 points both games. These were just not what you want to see out of a rookie quarterback. 5 touchdowns, 6 picks. He's forcing the ball. 3 sacks last week. I mean, you just got to – it's going to be fun to watch him, but I don't know how fun it's going to be to watch this Jacksonville offense.
Yeah, don't be stupid, though, right? We're talking about redraft right now. In a dynasty league, do not go and move him because you're worried about him right now, right? Last year, I think there's this misconception that quarterbacks just step in and light the world on fire when they come in, like you saw Justin Herbert do last year, like you saw Joe Burrow do. That's not the norm, right? Think about Peyton Manning when he came in. He had, I believe, don't quote me, he had more interceptions than he did touchdowns his rookie year, or some astronomical amount of interceptions to begin with. So that he's on a bad team. He's on a team with a new head coach, with no defense, with no offensive line, a coach that doesn't want to use the running back that they have. It's just not a recipe for success for him in year one. Do not sell him, because people are going to lowball you because of how bad he is performing right now. And you can't afford that with the number 1 overall pick in Superflex leagues.
Yeah, it's dynasty. Be smart about things, guys. It's dynasty for a reason. You don't over-exaggerate after 2 weeks. That's why you trust the process. The rookie profiles, like you can find out from ours truly, Brad, ffaffair.com. Gives you guys kind of an inside look at these players' profiles, things like that. Let's move on, man. You talk Joe Mixon as your start of the week. RB 14 on the year. This guy's in a smash spot. I agree. Feels like he's going to be an RB1 this week, correct?
Absolutely. I think there's a world he's RB1 overall this week.
You can't hate on 29 carries, 20 carries, 18 carries. The production's going to come, especially against a shitty Jags defense. Let's talk the other side of the coin. Let's talk James Robinson, RB 17 on the year, coming off of a 20-touch, 134-yard total yards and a touchdown. Is this guy a smash start in your RB2 spot?
It's tough. You got to make your call here, right? Because the Bengals have not allowed a lot of rushing yards. So right now they've only allowed 174 rushing yards through 3 weeks. That's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. Where they have struggled is they are number 5 in passing yards to the running back position. So now I'm looking at, okay, well, is Urban Meyer not a dumbass? And is he going to throw the ball to James Robinson like he did last week? Or is he going to resort to saying this guy's an undrafted free agent, he's not as good as everybody thinks he is, and we're just going to let him die on the team and not utilize him? That's the question you have to ask yourself. To me, I think it was evident that Urban Meyer realized he was not using an asset that he had. He gave him 6 targets. He had 6 catches and turned that into some yardage. So I think you're going to see some passing yardage. So I think he's a solid flex play. I would not want him as my RB1 or my RB2, but I think the volume is going to be there. The passing down work is going to be there for him to be a viable option in your flex.
I can dig it. I'm probably starting Robinson here. I feel like he's going to get the workload. I think they're going to try to take the ball. Granted, it kind of depends. If it's a running game, if the 45 total points under, I could see Robinson having some success. At an RB2 price point, I'm probably starting Robinson in this spot. I think it's a good matchup. Let's go receivers, guys. Another one, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 8 on the year. Back-to-back, 22, 15, 22. This guy's got 5 touchdowns on the year, Brad. In this matchup, is this just too good to be true? I'm not saying rest of the season or dynasty value, but you got to start him after how hot he's been as a pistol. Wide receiver 8.
So I go back to my high school, when you're playing basketball and you hear the chants from the stands that say, overrated. Overrated. Like, that's what I hear right now, because I am probably stuck in the mud here because I didn't like Jamar Chase and his profile coming out of college. I thought he was going to be somewhat of a bust. I just didn't see the same skill set that I saw other solid wide receivers come out of. I'm not a professional scout, right? Obviously, these guys, he got taken number 4 or number 5 overall, right? I get that. But here's the deal. Go watch his touchdowns. They're not impressive. They're not because he made somebody break their ankles or he ran some spectacular route. It's because he ran in a straight fucking line and caught a nice ball that was thrown by Joe Burrow. And corners that were not looking for the ball or blown coverage or whatever the case is. He's just not impressing me to where that volume of touchdowns and his efficiency in getting touchdowns is going to be sustainable. I don't understand how people can look at him and say, okay, a guy that has 16 targets, 4 touchdowns on 16 targets. That's a 25% touchdown efficiency. That is not real. That's not a real thing. And all you have to do is watch the plays. They're broken plays against shitty defenses like the Pittsburgh Steelers pass defense or the Minnesota Vikings pass defense or the Chicago Bears pass defense. He had 3 of the softest ass matchups. Now, with all of that being said, I think you have to play him this week. He's playing Jacksonville, another soft ass matchup. But now go and think about after that. it's not going to stay that way. There is a world where this fool has another touchdown this week, and he starts with one of the hottest streaks you've ever seen out of a rookie wide receiver. I just don't see anything that impresses me. I just don't. Like I said, I'm probably stuck because that was my take before the season started, and I'm looking through some fucked up glasses. But you have to start. I'm not going to say to bench the guy, right? That is unfair to the fantasy community. It's not going to stay this hot though, so don't expect that this is the norm.
Cooking with Crisco. We got a bunch of YouTube questions, which is crazy, but we'll take them. Eckler, Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and a bunch of like RB3s. He's got Adams, Woods, a bunch of wide receiver 3-4s. Any trade packages to get a better wide receiver too? Would you package? I'd probably try to still keep Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe package Harris, Sermon, and maybe Robbie Anderson. I mean, what do you do to get a wide receiver 2 here with this roster? Do you have to trade Clyde Edwards-Helaire to make that happen?
You probably do, but before I go to that, I would try to move Sermon based on the volume that he got last week. Right now, I'm an Elijah Mitchell truther. I believe Elijah Mitchell is the running back to own in San Francisco. So that's why I think you should look at maybe moving Sermon and a Cole Beasley for a higher profile wide receiver too, right? That's where I would go. I would try to take those guys on the bottom of my benches that have been valuable or have some uptick in value and see what I could get, right? The likelihood is if your league is interactive and guys that actually pay attention, you're probably not going to be able to do that because in reality, Sermon and Beasley's not going to net you anything, but that's where I would start. And then if I needed to move to CEH, I am totally fine moving Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a wide receiver. I do not believe in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I do not believe that he's going to get the volume that you want him to get or that they thought he was going to get or that you believed he was going to get when he was taken in the top 3 or 4 of your drafts last year. So I'm probably starting with Sermon and Beasley and then moving to CEH and Beasley or CEH and Myers to get a wide receiver too.
Would you be would you be trying to maybe get like a Godwin, an Amari Cooper, a guy that's on a high-powered offense that could have those wide receiver 1 weeks because he's after a wide receiver 2, a better one? Or are you going for like a Keenan Allen who's kind of underproduced? You know, I don't think you're getting a Hopkins. I think you might have a chance with what we've seen with Mike Williams to get a Keenan Allen.
Yeah, you're definitely not getting Mike Williams. I think Keenan Allen's a possibility, but you're definitely going to have to give CEH. Just the name value alone of Keenan Allen is going to drive his value up a little bit. I might be looking at guys like maybe an Allen Robinson, right? Who has severely underproduced up to this point. That may be a situation where his talent is so much better than what he is producing right now. And you can't think that he's going to stay down that long. So I might be looking to go super cheap here and see if I can't package like a Sermon and I'd probably go Sermon and Beasley for Allen Robinson or something like that and say, because Beasley's had some good PPR performances, some solid volume. Sermon got that work last week. So if you can play that narrative a little bit, I might be looking at some of those veterans who have kind of underperformed over the first couple weeks.
Allen Robinson, name to keep your head up. Andrew, thank you for the question. Hector is asking, is it worth stashing Josh Gordon or Deshaun Watson? Josh Gordon's been kind of intriguing here because this was kind of like a couple years ago with New England. He goes to New England. He has pretty good games with Tom Brady. Do you feel like there's a little bit of upside here in Kansas City? Like we said, they're double teaming Tyreek Hill. They've tried to sign Juju in the offseason. There's got to be a wide receiver too, right?
Yeah, you better get in there now before somebody picks him up, right? Especially if waivers ran today. Somebody could be trying to pick him up right now. I would go in, I'd make the bid on him if it's fab at $0 and pick him up, or I would just waste my waiver priority to go get him. He is a guy that is free. but has the most upside out of any player that you're going to get on the waiver wire. I went and picked him up in a couple dynasty leagues, and I spent up to, I think the max I spent was $11. Now, I saw him go for over $30 in a couple leagues when we're talking fab and dynasty. So, and this guy's a 30-year-old wide receiver, right, who's been out of the game for a year and a half, almost 2 years. So, but I think absolutely he's worth stashing. And to move on to Deshaun Watson, just because, again, I have him stashed in a couple, at least in one redraft league, and then obviously a bunch of dynasty leagues, because now is not the time to move him. But that upside, you have some constant churn on the back end of your roster, right? So you pick him up and you kind of see what happens and see if any news is heating up, which news is a little kind of heated up a little bit since Tua got hurt. Jacoby Brissett's come in. There's been that Miami flame has came up again. So I think it's worth a roster spot in deeper leagues. But if you're in a 12-man, 12-team, 16-man league, I'm probably not wasting a spot on Deshaun Watson right now.
Yeah, I think Watson's probably the one I don't really see him playing this year. I'm excited about Josh Gordon. I'm excited about Kansas City. Like you said, he's free. If he plays, he's a wide receiver 3. Could have way more value than that. I think he's got the juice. That's never been the issue. You've seen his body of work. He is a freak athlete. It's just, getting out of the car not smelling like pot.
Yep. Immediately the second best.
100%. How's a receiver not went to Kansas City? Like, what was Juju thinking? Like, you literally were in the prime spot. Like, psh, psh. All right, we got another one. Man, YouTube has been blowing up tonight. I haven't even been able to get to all of them. A lot of them are just comments. Javonta, Tyson Williams, or Damien Harris. Guys, we've seen Tyson Williams. What are we doing here, Brad? Hit me with it, my man.
Yeah, I just can't trust that Baltimore team right now, especially going up against Denver, right? So you're looking at Javonta Williams and Tyson Williams in a game against each other, right? Denver, Baltimore. After seeing that game last week, he only got like 5 carries and a target, or 6 carries and a target, or something like that. And that's against the Detroit Lions. I just don't know that I trust that team to not just put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands and let him go. Javonta Williams is a guy who's getting 15 touches a game. It's just happening, right? And again, I have a lot of bias because he was my RB1 coming out of the rookie draft this year over Najee Harris, over Travis Etienne, and all of that. But the guy is getting a minimum of 15 carries or 15 touches a game, and that is enough to flex. We talked about Damien Harris, about how he should be a sit right now against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There's no way he's touching my lineup out of these 3 guys. So for me, it's Javonta Williams.
It's pretty easy for me, too. I'm going Javonta. He saw the pass work. He saw some rushes. I think his role's only going to increase. I'm going Javonta. We got another one. We got a couple more, actually. We have Tyler Boyd or Marvin Jones. We just saw Tyler Boyd come off this big game, had the touchdown, had the targets, had the yards. You see C.J. Henderson from the Jaguars traded this week, but we've also seen Marvin Jones, but just do what he always does. 6 for 62, 6 for 55, 5 for 77, 2 touchdowns out of the last 3 games. Are you going Marvin Jones here, or are you going Boyd with the Higgins injury?
Yeah, I'm going Marvin Jones here. I mean, Tyler Boyd needed that touchdown to even be remotely relevant last week. He had 4 catches for 36 yards. That's close to a fucking goose egg. Like, that's not somebody I want in my lineup. In week 1, he had another pitiful showing. Week 2, he had a decent game. That was the game that T. Higgins went out, right? So they needed to fill that role in the game plan, right? And that's the difference is now you go to week 3, they were able to get a game plan set without T. Higgins, and it didn't really involve Tyler Boyd. He just ended up with a touchdown. Like I said, 3 for 26 and a touchdown. That's not something impressive to me. So to me, I'm going Marvin Jones. He's getting volume every game. He's getting red zone looks every game. Marvin Jones is a smash play over Tyler Boyd, in my opinion.
I'm right there with Marvin Jones. When I saw that he was wide receiver 18, I almost got mad at myself because I was like, why don't I have this guy in more leagues?
Yep.
Like, this guy's too cheap. And if you're a contender, God, you can get him for probably next to nothing, guys. Target Marvin Jones more. That's the name you need to keep your eyes on. We've got another one interesting. Man, how consistent has Michael Pittman been? He has literally been the favorite target for Wentz. Clyde Edwards-Helaire just had a bounce-back game after shitting the bed multiple weeks in a row. What are you doing here, Brad? Are you going Pittman in your flex? Or are you trusting Clyde just so he can break your heart?
I am probably leaning CEH here. And I think mostly – the real, because they're pretty close, right? Tier wise, I'd say they're pretty darn close to the same tier. But for me, the deciding factor is Xavier Howard for the Miami Dolphins, right? So they've got a really top notch corner, and he hasn't played great this year, but historically, he's an excellent cover corner. And there's really nobody else on that offense right now. I wish Paris Campbell would become a thing. I think he's talented. It's just he's not getting the looks. He's probably still a little injured, but Pittman going up against Xavier Howard just doesn't give me that warm fuzzy because I don't think Michael Pittman's that great. I just don't think he's that good. So I don't think he can beat Xavier Howard to be relevant this week. So I'm going to go CEH, even though I'm not happy about it.
What I see is these 12 targets back-to-back weeks. So I see him against Tennessee. I see him against the Rams, and I see Pittman delivering the goods. So to me, I'm going to be a little ballsy here, and I'm just thinking just maybe, I might go Pittman here. I mean, how many more times can Clyde Edwards-Helaire fuck up before something happens? This is the pros, man. Like I said, that's not a contrarian pick, but I might go Pittman. Play it a little more, risk it for the biscuit on those two because I think I'd be a little more mad if I had Pittman on my bench and he blew up than I would Clyde. One more. Here we go. 2 wide receivers on a flex. I've got Woods. I've got Sutton. I got Boyd and Jones. Really looks like Boyd's the last guy left out, so I kind of push him to the side. Sutton's had some good weeks. We're waiting on Woods. Marvin Jones has had some good weeks. Give me your ranking of these receivers for week 4.
Marvin Jones, Cortland Sutton, Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd. So I'm starting Sutton and Marvin Jones, Cortland Sutton up against the Baltimore Ravens. I just think that game's going to require more passing volume, and Teddy Bridgewater's been really good when he's needed to throw the ball. And you saw the game that they needed to throw. Last week is hard, right? Because they played the Jets. They dominated the Jets. It was the Jets last week, right? I'm not losing my mind.
No, you're correct. He saw 5 targets against the Jets. We just talked about how good the Jets were against quarterbacks, though.
Yeah, but that's only because their defense is so bad that the teams are up. They just don't have to throw anymore. It's not because their defense is good against the pass. It's that they suck everywhere, right? So to me, Cortland Sutton against Baltimore, a better team, a team that's going to put points on the board. They're going to need to throw the ball. I see a big bounce back game for Cortland Sutton here. And we just talked about Marvin Jones. The volume's there. The red zone targets are there. So you just aren't seeing that out of Robert Woods and Tyler Boyd right now.
Yeah, I think I'm smashing Marvin Jones just in this spot. I think he's going to be a start just in the matchup. Sutton and Woods, I'd have to go back and forth. Give me Woods. Like I said, I'm playing it safe here. I think Woods is going to come upon this week. Real quick, we've talked we've talked Boyd. We've seen what Chark and LaVisca have done, which is next to nothing. They've been fed targets, things like that. Let's finish it out here, man. Let's talk Boyd, Chark, LaVisca. How are you ranking these guys for tomorrow night?
Shark. I'm going to go Shark, Boyd, and Chenault. Boyd and Chenault
Chenault
are
just
really
really
close.
hasn't done shit.
Yeah, they're close for me. I mean, the target volume's pretty similar between the two. And Chenault is just, he's not getting as much of that underneath work as I thought they were going to be looking to do. It's like I said, that Urban Meyer play calling is very odd right now. They're just not utilizing him in ways that I thought they were going to, especially with
4 targets last week.
Yeah, it's just not enough, especially out of a guy that you're playing out of the slot right now. I mean, Hunter Renfrow is getting more work than he is out of the slot for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I just, it's surprising to me because he's super athletic. He's got great yards after the catch. They're just not involving him. So I'm going to put him last on my list out of the 3.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like I said, it's ugly, but I'm hoping for the upside play with Chark there. I do like Boyd. I think he could exploit this matchup. But like you said, if it's a mixing game and they don't need a pass, somebody has to catch passes. So it's probably Chark and LaVisca. We'll see. I'm not starting LaVisca regardless.
Yep. Yeah, no,
Brad.
I don't think you can. I just don't think you can start him anywhere in any format right now. So.
Last question. CJ Uzama, Dan Arnold, Luke Farrell. Are you starting any of these tight ends?
I mean, if I have to, CJ Uzama is probably the only one that I'd care to. I mean, he is the de facto, right? He's the guy that's running most of the routes. He's the guy that's getting the targets at the tight end position. So if I had to pick one, I'm going CJ Uzama, but I have zero interest in any of them.
All right, guys. Start sits, Bengals, Jags. We just gave you 2 hours of good yum-yums. Brad, if they want some more of you, where can they find you?
Hey, look, ffaffair.com, whether it's articles, whether it's rankings, whether it's start-sit questions on our Twitter profile, check us out. On Twitter, I'm at ffbourbondude. If you have anything about bourbon, I have a shit ton of it back here. You got a question about, hey man, I'm really wanting to get into it. What's an affordable bottle that I can go find in any store that's going to be delicious? I'm going to tell you, hey, it's Evan Williams Single Barrel for $28. You go get it. You peel that wax off. You pour you a glass. It's fucking delicious. And you're never going to turn away from bourbon after that. Or you want to go higher end and you ask me, I would be more than happy to point you in the direction. We can talk about all kinds of stuff from football to bourbon to Kentucky to veterans to anything. So hit me up at ffbourbondude on Twitter and look for our work on ffaffair.com.
ffaffair.com, guys. If you need anything, I'm the MattyDaddy. FF Affair. We got it all. The goods. Thrive Fantasy promo code. And I've been watching a show with my wife. If you haven't seen Justified on Netflix, give it a shot. It's a little good, something different, but Excellent. I've enjoyed it. Glad you've seen it, dude. Till next time, we'll see you again. Maybe Sunday. Sunday fun day. Whoops.